Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is your brother, Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS Shout Out Show. I'm hoping that you had a wonderful weekend. I want to give a shout out to my brothers and sisters in the Dearborn, Detroit area who hosted me for our brand of It Sounded Funny at the Time. Big shout out to the band that are sat behind me, Ishmael, Sister Tanzine, their son, Brother John Mateen, Brother John Chase. We had quite an event out there, and I just want to tell everybody that came out, we appreciate your support. Detroit and Dearborn are always a warm city to come to, and it was cold that night, but it was a warm city to come to, and people came out and supported, and I have to say it was just a lot of love in the building. So shout out to everybody. That's number one. Number two is we want to make sure we give a shout out to Sister Hannah, cousin Hannah. My mom's on. We give a shout out to cousin Hannah. Hope that you're doing well, feeling better. My Aunt Maxine and my mom have definitely reached out, trying to make sure you feel good. Prayers are in the pipeline. All right. And I also want to give a shout out to Sister Amina Khalil. They're on Umrah, and her daughter, Nashwa Khalil, is taking her out there. So we just want to make sure people are out there in good spirits. Also, Sister Carol Slocum and Sister Mary Adams of Doug Robinson and John Adams, respectively, those are his sons, wishing you well. Man, we had a massive weekend, and I looked up, and all of a sudden, here we are. We're the weekend before Christmas. How about that? The 20th, the 21st, all of this stuff is converging. So I thought today would be really, really interesting because in the news, something actually happened, and we didn't get as much publicity as I thought it would, but I thought I'd spend a little time on it today. The U.S. White House decided today that they were going to make an initiative. They're going to make a very bold initiative that here in the United States that they are pledging to reduce homelessness by 25%. Now, what does that mean? We are a country that has roughly a little under 600,000 people that are homeless, or what we call unhoused now. We use the word unhoused. And what I thought was interesting was some of the protocols that they're looking to implement are a lot of the things that a lot of these civic groups, church groups, people who actually live the homeless experience are actually talking about. Now, I want to talk about some of those things because I believe we need to amplify that. We need to make sure that our politicians and our civic leaders and our religious leaders understand that these are the things that the people are requiring in the constant aspects of the spiritual, moral, and I want to say psychological uplift. It is a major thing to have a home to go to. It's a major thing for a home to be able to leave a home and to come back. That in that home, there are provisions for that person. And I don't mean just provisions of heat and electricity and gas. It is the social connection with being able to have safety. So we're going to talk about that today here on the Shout Out Show. Our title is Homelessness. A house is not a home. What is a house? A house is a strategy for success, well-being, and fruitfulness. So we're going to talk about here on the Shout Out Show. So if you have any questions, make sure that you're ready to throw them out there. This is a very open forum today. And today and tomorrow, we're actually going to be talking about what we're going to be doing format-wise here on the Shout Out Show. We've been blessed to have so many shows, so we're going to sit here with our viewers and go through them. And I'm actually asked for some suggestions. That'll probably be tomorrow, inshallah. But listen, for today, this is our focus. Now, I want you to open up your mind. I want you to just close your mind, close your eyes, and think about some of the visions of you've seen over the years of people who were homeless or unhoused, how it made you feel, strategically how you wanted to address it, creatively what were your ideas. You know, that's what we're going to talk about here today on the Shout Out Show Solutions, because a house is not a home. talking about homelessness and being unhoused here on the ShOUT Show. Don't you move. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be right back. All right, just a quick note. I want to make sure everybody knows that I will be at Mass ICTA in Chicago on December the 27th at the McCormick Convention Center, downtown Chicago. Make sure you get your tickets. It's going to be a great show. I'm going to be hosting a variety of acts. We have Muslim acrobats, we have singers, we have magicians, we have spoken word artists, we have nasheeds. Make sure that you are in the place. Again, that is Mass ICTA Convention in Chicago. December 26th through the 28th, with the big entertainment section being on the 27th. Don't miss it. Okay. Before we get into this, let me talk about who's in our house here. Our Hall of Fame. Our stars in the building. I want to make sure we get them in. Shout out to Sister Ree. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Ree. Peace and blessings to you, your husband, and your son. I hope you're doing well. Sister Ree is going to be going on a little road trip for the holidays. We wish you safe passage wherever you're going. You're going to Michigan. Be careful when you get up there. It's going to be cold. I know it's cold down there where you are right now, but it's going to be cold. Be careful. All right? That's my thoughts. Next up, my main man, my big brother, Bilal Salahuddin. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And, of course, he's with his lovely queen, Sister Sonia Dalta Salahuddin. Good to have both of you in the building. I hope you're doing all right. You're staying warm down there in Houston. I heard it's going to be dropping. You might have to pull out some actual firewood and start a fire, but hang on in there, though. It's only going to last. Houston, it'll be like 17 one day, and the next day, it'll be 65. All right, so dress accordingly. One wool sock and one no sock on the other foot at all. All right? Then we got, of course, my main man, Mr. 6 o'clock, Mr. Straight Up, Straight Down. My brother, Altar Rashid, wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you doing, beloved? Hope you're doing well, man. Appreciate you. Assalamu alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. And, of course, we can't start the show without having our anchor, sister. Who's this sister? I'm just messing around. Of course, Sister Satana Whitfield, our executive producer of the show. We appreciate you, Sister Satana, for joining in and being a part of this discussion. It does not happen without that sister. She is the rock solid of the ShOUT Show. So let me get to this. An announcement was made regarding homelessness in the United States. Now, you can take it with a grain of salt. You can say, what is the strategy behind this? Why are we doing this? Okay, we can come up with all kinds of conspiracy theories, but the White House announced an initiative, a challenge that they want to reduce homelessness by 25% here in the United States by 2025. Here's the scope of it. Long story short, they can do it. The reason why they say 25% is because it's already been done right now. Why is it accessible right now? And I'm going to tell you why. Because in the upcoming years, particularly heading into the election, the people who are going to be recipients of this housing, if you will, and let me be very, very careful here. I say a house is not a home. I said a house is a strategic opportunity for security and safekeeping. This is why it's important. Pay attention. Housing has to do with the viability of human life on a social context. This is what I mean. It's not so much that you have a house. It's that you have a place to stay, shelter, if you will, and it's built on a continuum of a lot of things in terms of social mechanisms, social tools. There are things that have to happen for you to be a house. And I think the thing to have a house, and I think the thing that's being looked over is a stigma in some regards, that some people think that being homeless somehow connotes some kind of laziness or lack of discipline. What they're finding out now is there are a lot of people who work 9-to-5 jobs or part-time jobs, and they find themselves homeless. This is a big thing. Shout out to Brother Eric. Good to see you in the building. So here's the thing I want everybody to be very, 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 very clear about. That homeless is not happening in the traditional succession. What they're finding out is something that was being advocated almost 7 years ago, and it had to do a lot. It had a lot to do with the whole scope of, are these communities that we say underserved communities, underrepresented communities, are these communities actually in a track where they can enjoy, engage, and express what we call financial mobility? That the money you're making allows you to go to other opportunities. Now, on the flip side, you could say housing, if you will. But the scope of housing back in the day was framed in terms of, it was a race card. Certain people couldn't live here, certain people couldn't live there. And it was framed, of course, by property tax and tax codes. That in some regards, people are not allowed to make enough money to go into these areas. This is important because some of those same tax laws are still on the books. When we work, in many regards, the money that we're learning, is this right here, is the fact that it's not applicable, that it's not something that can be branded quality, I want to say quality income or revenue to assist in this whole phenomenon of financial mobility, that your money takes you places. And the Biden administration, just like the Trump administration, has provided, I want to say, artificial bumps in terms of revenue. Of course, I'm talking about stimulus packages and things like that, stimulus money, PPP, all that type of stuff. Because what they found during the COVID crisis, and we touched on it, is that people were working during the COVID crisis. The problem was people were working, but the money that they were having, it didn't allow them to move from point A to point B in terms of financial structure or financial status, if you will. The move from lower class to underclass, underclass to lower class to middle class to upper middle class, and so on and so on and so on. That this money, if applied correctly, could do that, but it wasn't that. We gave it in a crisis, and it was given in a crisis because a lot of people didn't question it, because everybody was eligible for it. Everybody was eligible to get the money. In any other scenario, in our politics, or our nation of politics, if you will, politics, you know that people who apply for this money are stigmatized. That if it's quote unquote welfare, you know who we think the recipients look like. COVID, everybody was a recipient. And what they found in this COVID type of situation is two things. Number one, they found a lot of money, and we can say they put in a lot of money. But also number two, they looked at the fact, and this is really important, they looked at the fact that the money that they were giving, it wasn't millions of dollars. It might be $1,000, $2,000, $3,500. But what they were finding out is that little bit of money allowed people to do things, to save some money, to purchase a car. It allowed them to be competitive in going out for other different jobs, if you will. Some people retrained with the money that they had. And they realized, I mean, you guys probably realize there's still a surplus of that money left. It's just that COVID is gone and we don't have COVID as a cover to give out this money anymore. So what you have now is politics. So all the politicians and the hawks, they want that money for something else. They don't want it for COVID. COVID is over. They want it for job training. We want the money for whatever it is, pork they're trying to put out there in terms of a budget. But here's the thing, and this is what I like. Studies have shown that in the last 4 years, people are looking at the fact that homelessness has a systematic input, that homelessness has on-ramps, if you will, that people coming out of foster care need assistance, people coming out of incarceration need assistance, people who are coming out of low education situations need assistance, People coming in to the country who are immigrants need assistance. What do all of these things have in common? They're built upon transition and being able to apply money. You probably already know this, but they're talking about a majority of the homeless here in the United States are over the age of 55. And being over the age of 55, you can't say that these people have been homeless for the last 30, 40 years. It's not true. You're looking at an economy that's made a fundamental shift, if you will. It started way back, but it's made a fundamental shift whereby the factories are closed. We're not manufacturing anything, and everything is information-based. Social media is information-based. You want to do technology is information-based. And so you have a group of people, they've been, I want to say, classified out of that situation. It's not applicable. It's not something that they're doing at age 55. But traditionally, you find people who are 55 and they find themselves not being able to have ends meet. Why is this important? Because at 55, 65, 75, you're somewhat at the end of your vitality in terms of how you generate revenue. Sans people who do entrepreneurial stuff, okay, but we talk about people who retire and have pensions and things like that. And what they find out is that a lot of times over the course of a period of time, the pensions don't keep up with the COLA, the cost of living adjustments. And not being able to keep up with the COLA creates these situations. So what's my point? My point is, if the government knows, if the White House knows, inclusive of President Biden, if you know that some of these things have to do with financial mobility, stop just labeling it as homelessness and make the money that you have applicable to people being able to make transitions. You know, there was a book I read some years ago. I'm trying to remember it. But they talked about the adjustment of income and how it affected people's quality of life. And they did one study with a young man, and I guess what they found was for additional $375 a month, he didn't have to live in a bad neighborhood. That additional $375 a month allowed him to live in a place, here it is, safe neighborhood, number one. Number two, other job opportunities. Number three, better schools. So you can begin to see that I said a house is not a home, it's a strategy. Yeah. Where you live has a lot to do with what your opportunities are going to be. Ustad Bela Evans said something when I interviewed him for Zakat Curious. He said, let's be honest. If your environment was poor, per se, if your parents were poor, your parents were, mom and dad were poor, they worked hard, good hard work, but they were poor, there's a chance, a high probability that you may be poor too. That not introducing the whole idea of financial, or not, I want to say not being able for them to access financial mobility and be able to move from point A to point B, it allows people sometimes to be stuck in certain different places. They don't know these things. These are white papers about economics that have been written over the last 20 years. These people are not talking about white papers. They're talking about what I put on the table as food for my family, and I salute. But before we get into this whole thing about homelessness and unhoused, begin to understand that there's a process. And the process is applicable in two ways. Number one, understanding need. I don't care what people say. I say this all the time. You can assess need before it gets there. You can assess need before it gets there. And being able to assess needs allows you to budget what you need to address the need. That's number one. Number two, when people are in need, there needs to be an availability of not just the funds, but availability of how you can use the funds to expand other opportunities for yourself. Now, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back and we're going to get back on this thing of a house is not a home, talking about homelessness here on the ShOUT Show. I'm Preacher Moss. Don't you move. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home
home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear Don't Get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now is the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
And we're back. Before I go any further, I want to give a shout out to Sister Sonia Salahuddin Dalton, my dear sister. She's with Brother Bilal, but she's in another part of the house. I don't know how that works, but it works. I want to give her a shout out. And for those of you that weren't here on Thursday, my brother's on, JT, Brother Johnny L. Thomas, but we call him JT. Just a shout out. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. Salams again to you, Sister Sonia. I want to give a shout out and a big salams and a hearty way to go to my nephew. That'd be Jordan Thomas. He's a hardworking kid. And I'm happy to say whatever comes his way, doggone it, he earned it. He's not a slouch. He's talented. He's gifted. He's focused at a very young age. And it paid off as he was accepted into Yale University. I'm very proud of that young man. That's Yale with a capital Yale. That's not Yale, Y-E-L-L. I'm talking about Y-A-L-E, Yale. Congratulations. He will be studying, inshallah, biomedical engineering. So, very proud of that young man. And Sister Santana said, congratulations. She's just happy I was able to say biomedical engineering because I definitely couldn't study it. So let me get back on this point about this new initiative to address homelessness and reduce it by 25% by the year 2025. The way they're going to do it is they're actually going to engage a lot of the advocacy and protocols of the people who do the work. You guys remember Brother Umar Hakim, who came on about a year and a half ago, and he talked about his work with the homeless. One of the things he talked about was the fact that the homeless have an ecosystem. And I asked him about him on the show. He said that homeless have an ecosystem. They know what life on the street is. They know, and they've established their own protocol for how you survive. His company or his advocacy with the fact that working on Skid Row in LA, where they have a huge homeless population, and one of the reasons they have a huge homeless population out in LA is because it's warm. It's year-round warmth. But he said being able to address small need, whether it was toothbrushes, clean underwear, toilet paper, it increased the functionality of the people who were unhoused, meaning they're not resorting to something. One thing I do like about the Biden plan that they're trying to put out is the fact they're going to, when we talk about assessing need, there's a heavy impetus on what? Mental health. Because we tend to think in some cases that the homeless are automatically, bereft of moral capacity. They are not. They're extremely high functioning if you think about it. If you figure out a way to stay on the street and live and not have a home and still be functional, you're a smart person. Okay. The other thing that's being addressed, and I have to say that, and let's get it out in the open, is whether you're unhoused or you're homeless, the loss of a residence, the loss of a place where you put your key in and open the lock, the loss of a roof, these things are traumatic. And when I say they're traumatic, this is what I mean. You have people who work and work well. They have nice jobs, but their revenue, the money they bring home is not enough to take care of the bills where they stay. And it becomes a situation whereby they're constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul. To essentially, there's nothing to rob. You can't rob Peter to give the Paul. You ain't got it. And it's not that they are doing anything different. It's just that the economy and the economic factors behind rental and housing and mortgages, these things have grown exponentially. And so you've created a whole new population. They call them unhoused. But what they're learning is even people that are going through that admit and acknowledge that this is an extremely traumatic situation. So the impetus for mental health is important. Why? Because if you're addressing mental health, you're saving money. If you're addressing mental health, you're saving money. If you're addressing aspects of transportation, I know when I used to work, in a group home. One of the things that really, really helped the kids out is that when they went out looking for jobs, they would go out looking for jobs and employment. One of the things that was extremely helpful was this, that we were able to give them bus tokens. And giving them a bus token to get there and a bus token back was highly effective in them actually going to the jobs. It gave them something that they didn't have to worry about. And if you think about it, when they got jobs, we still gave them bus tokens because it allowed them to be employed and show up for work and establish work history. This is the thing that the buying opportunity is doing for a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work 100%. But I'm going to say this, and I know I'm really, really hard on Joe Biden. I will say that it is a step in the right direction. It's a move back from this whole idea, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That doesn't make any sense. This is America. America has a very, very long history of saying pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but you're sitting there wearing flip-flops. Hear what I'm saying? The point is, people are getting to the marketplace differently in terms of housing, security, education. You know, if you think about it, and I reflect on something my grandfather told me years ago. He took me to a part of DC and we looked out and he said, for however many years he worked over here, he said, I want you to understand it's only been 2 or 3 years that black folk live over there. This is Washington, DC, that black folk can live over there. Because even though it was Chocolate City, this part of the town, you can go, and it was protected by tax codes, property tax. You know, people wouldn't buy houses in certain places in Maryland and DC because you bought a house, but you couldn't afford the property tax. You might be able to afford it 1 year, but every year it got higher and higher. This is a part of the gentrification problem in DC right now. People have been living in a house 40 years. All of a sudden, they find themselves having to move. Why? Because at an elderly age, 55 and above, they can't afford the property tax. So the wrap, if you will. The wrap is, I'm very, very happy. But the other wrap is, we have to be in a situation, despite whatever the government is doing, on a very, very personal and street level, a very, very personal and community level. We need to be asking people what they need before they become in the status, that they find themselves in the status of being unhoused or homeless. People are not homeless overnight. Paying attention to the trends, paying attention to the signs is extremely important. Having honest conversations about where they are in the process is extremely important. You know, a lot of times it's pride, sometimes it's mental health, sometimes we find ourselves in situations that we didn't expect to find ourselves in, and that's okay. What the government needs to understand is these are things that are happening every day. And the application of some funds here, is not a give to people. That money is to be spent and applied strategically to keep me out of a situation from this one to that one. Money should be moved and distributed, not for people to just pay their bills. It should be that people can pay their bills, pay down their debt, and they can see that if I can take this money and get a better job, I can get a better job, I can get a better house. I can get a better house, we can get better schools. I get a better job, I can get a better retirement plan, my health care. All these things are all entangled, if you will. I won't say entangled, but they're definitely specifically networked. And I don't want us to overlook the fact that in the end, we're all family. So, like I said, a house is not a home. It's a strategic opportunity, but humanity is humanity. All right. I'm Preacher Moss on the SOS. You guys have been great. See you tomorrow. Shout out. Assalamu alaikum.